Okay, recording is officially in progress. And in the interest of kind of moving things along, I do want to keep it kind of casual and open-ended because we don't really have an agenda for tonight. If everybody could kindly mute themselves until they have something to say, because I know we're all putting kids down to bed and all that. And if you could just really quick go to the chat room, put in your name, kind of like what your title is, where you live, that kind of thing. So I'm going to put myself in. I'm Maggie Alvarez. I'm with Nevada Friends of Midwives. And we are a parental rights activist group that seeks to maintain the freedoms that we have in childbirth in Nevada. So and that's a picture of my husband. Sorry, it's not me. If everybody could do me that favor, it just makes it so much easier to contact everybody later if you want me to. And if you want to put contact information in the chat as well, that would be cool. If you don't feel obligated. Just be aware that everybody here is going to see it. Okay. Amy Norris is here with us. Can you wave, Amy? And Amy, if you just want to unmute yourself really quick and say who you are, and if you could also drop in the chat the list of bills that we are looking at.
Absolutely. So, hi, I am Amy Norris. I am a home birthing mother here in Las Vegas. I know a lot of you already. I am a retired lactation consultant and childbirth educator. I am a current La Leche League leader, but that is not my role here. I am here as an interested mother in what is going on in the legislature right now. I am going to attempt to keep the meeting on track tonight. If we have side conversations start up or we get distracted, I might pipe up and be the bully and say, sorry guys, we need to get back on topic. If people ask for things in the chat, links, I will do my best to provide those as we go along so we can all see what we are talking about. So thank you everyone for coming. I know it's late and it's bedtime and we've got kids to take care of, but we really appreciate that you showed up to talk about this with us tonight. Maggie, back to you.
Amy, did you drop the list in here? Because I don't have it open anywhere else. Or maybe someone else has it.
All right, I'm doing it right now. I can't talk and type at the same time.
You're fired. Oh wait, you don't get paid.
There we go.
Okay.
It's in the list.
All right. So those of you who are able to access the chat, this is a list of bills that we're watching that are in the session right now. If you're not familiar with how the process works, it'll be what they call a BDR first, which is a draft. And then it will become a bill and be assigned a number. Sometimes as a BDR, it's assigned a number as well. And you have the ability to track these on the Nevada legislature website. And so all of you wonderful, hardworking, attentive people have been tracking. And so this is the list we've compiled. If you are aware of a bill that affects anything in the birth world, I mean, like lactation consulting, rules about how small businesses can operate, what you can do with a placenta, anything with the word birth or childbirth, mother, child, like look it up, take a glance at what it might be, and please let us know. So these are the ones that we're currently watching. Oh, I hope I didn't lose you. And if you look over on the left, you'll see that there are a couple that are not yet officially BDRs. Because we're watching them anyway, because we have a sneaky suspicion that we know what those are. And I'll start right off with the one that is most concerning to many of us here and why we belong to these groups, and that is 111. We believe that that's a placeholder with Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno. And excuse me, this is a bill that will seek to license certified professional midwives in Nevada. And we fought it very, very hard last session and killed it at midnight by one vote. So we really need everybody to take a really close look at this and ask yourself if this is really in the best interest of you, your clients, you know, your daughters, your aunts, your friends who are giving birth in Nevada, or who might ever. And our main concerns with this, now I want to be very clear, we're being recorded. Lest I give out misinformation, I'm often accused of spreading misinformation. This is not yet a BDR, but we know the language is in the hands of that assemblywoman. And we know that it is based off the bill from last time. So we are making broad assumptions that it's just going to look like it was last time. And here are our main problems with this bill. One is that it seeks licensure. And in every state where midwives have been licensed, it always comes with restrictions and unintended consequences for everybody and eliminates a lot of choices for mothers and limits the decisions that midwives can make about how they run their businesses. So even if it were the most glorious, perfect, shiny bill that anybody could ever write, just that fact is concerning enough for people to keep a close eye on it. Excuse me. Our second main concern is the educational requirements. Those of you who are familiar with the CPM, the Certified Professional Midwife, who this bill seeks to license, there are a lot of paths to get that certification, and the ones that most midwives and most students have pursued or are currently pursuing would no longer be available by 2025. And if you have ever looked into that process at all, most midwives could say that it took them anywhere from 3 to 6, 7, 8 years to complete that process. So this means that many students who are in this process maybe have made huge sacrifices and, you know, put out a lot of money, and their families have sacrificed for them to be 2 or 3 years into this process, knowing they're not going to finish by 2025 means that they would not be, excuse me, I have big barky dogs. Can you please go check on the dogs? Would not meet the requirements. Besides which, the requirement is, please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not this person, is, and Tiffany, maybe you could chime in, is the equivalent of a MEAC school, MEAC, which do not exist in Nevada, do not arguably provide any higher level of education than the regular CPM already receives. There really just are not really evidential benefits to having this MEAC schooling, other than the fact that these colleges would make boatloads of money. I am going off some information that we acquired last time by just literally calling every single midwife that we could find in Nevada. And at that time, so this is 2 years ago, out of approximately 60 midwives in Nevada, 3 had a MEAC accreditation. 2 are the authors of the bill, who are Tiffany and Amanda in Northern Nevada. I'm sorry, Amanda McDonald and Tiffany Hopkins. The third no longer lives here and was opposed to the bill anyway. So what that would mean is, we think, midwives coming in from California who have MEAC accreditation where there are MEAC colleges, and they had no problem with that. Well, we'll just displace the midwives who are here who refuse licensure, and we can replace them with midwives from other states who already have this MEAC accreditation. So that is one concern. And let me think, what are some of our other concerns? Oh, concerns of licensure of assistants. I've been told that's not a requirement. And I see that there is a Tiffany from Reno here. Maybe it's, I can't see a last name, but if I'm correct, you're one of the authors of the bill. And if so, you could certainly chime in, but we don't have official language yet. So I'm going off what was in the last bill. And that did require for assistants and apprentices to be licensed. I did look again at the language on the NACPM website, excuse me. And it's kind of vague. It says they can use an assistant who has this license. And I don't know anybody who'd want to do that. There are more disadvantages to an assistant being licensed than not because many assistants and apprentices do not enter the profession with that intention. They come in as doulas, they come in as birth photographers, they come in as aunties and cousins, placental encapsulators, birth tub renters, all these people, and they organically, relationally work their way into the role of a birth assistant and probably would not just jump in feet first, pay the money, take the classes, and really invest themselves in this lifestyle without their family really knowing if it's a good fit for them. And there are also restrictions, being that that assistant cannot be present for that mom at any time without the midwife, which really eliminates a huge part of that assistant's education. Feel free to raise your hand. I can't see a lot of you, but if you've been in that position, if you were that assistant, if you were that apprentice, if you were that doula, you were the one who got to spend all those long, boring hours of early labor with that mother that provided all more education than any other, accreditation could, observing a mom in early labor for hours and hours and hours. Excuse me. Besides which, if you're the first one there, when you pull into the driveway and this mom is pushing her baby out, but the midwife is not there yet, you can't go in and help her if you're licensed. So that's a big concern. So many of the reasons that midwives need and want apprentices and assistants is so that they can send somebody ahead to stay with that mom in early labor, to at least go hold her hand and be an observational point. Maybe you didn't attend 50 births, maybe you're not qualified to catch a baby, but you've seen 5 or 10, and so you're way more qualified than like the next door neighbor. And that's a really, really valuable asset to a midwife who is maybe at another birth, wrapping it up, or on her way across town. I just don't see the advantage to licensing your assistant so that everybody's hands are tied. What are some of our other concerns? Help me out, people, from last time. I didn't write it down. It's really late where I am.
Disclosure form. Can you talk about the disclosure form?
Oh, the disclosure form. Okay. So some stakeholders, and we do not know who these stakeholders are because communication about stakeholders is really hazy, feel that a disclosure form is really, really important. In the last session, it was just for other midwives, meaning those who are not certified professional midwives, who got their training some other way and who do not intend to be licensed. Okay. This is extremely important, and why we're fighting so hard against this bill, because that option being available to moms is the last stand for birth autonomy in this state. And if I'm not mistaken, in the nation, I think we are the last state that really has birth freedom. There might be one more, but I think we're the last one. So to have this option of an unlicensed midwife who literally answers to nobody but you means that that midwife answers to nobody but you. And so if these unnamed stakeholders are saying it's somehow going to provide an extra level of accountability and honesty on the part of these other midwives to hand the disclosure form to a potential client, which is supposed to lay out the basic kinds of midwives, what kind of training they receive, and then you sign that you understand what kind of midwife that you are hiring, is frankly insulting. And it's going to send up a lot of red flags for parents who want to be off the radar. It is why they sought out an unlicensed midwife to begin with. So to know that somebody somewhere is going to view this piece of paper that you signed, saying that you understand in this 30 seconds that you've held this paper, the differences in all the different kinds of midwives, leaves you open to possible consequences later, should you have a bad outcome at your birth. And we've seen this in other states where it's viewed as medical negligence on the part of the parents. And I'm sure that many other midwives here can attest, you have your handful of clients who came to you because they have a very real and very valid fear of CPS, and not for any good reason. Furthermore, the word disclosure kind of implies that midwives are not already disclosing who they are. They are, everybody here can attest that they spend hours with a new client, not only for that client's sake, but for your own, to make sure that you're a good fit, because nobody wants to find out at 37 weeks that they're not a good fit with their new client, right? And B, who ultimately has a responsibility to educate themselves on their provider, be it an OB, a certified nurse midwife, whoever you choose, ultimately that responsibility lands on the parent. So yes, we're opposed to the disclosure form. The other thing to bear in mind is that there is no midwifery board in Nevada, and there really isn't money for one. So what this means is that either we have to come up with loads of money to start a board. And the last time I checked, the language only calls for $1,000 per midwife per year, plus like $100 from the assistants or something like this. And being as based on our polls from last session, only about 6 said they would pursue licensure at all. Well, that's like $6,000 for this board to run, and it's not going to fly. So that means they have to put you under another board, which would mean either the Board of Health or the Board of Nursing. And no CPMs want to be under a board of nurses or OBGYNs or other people who don't know anything about home birth at all. Excuse me, it's really late here and I've been on a lot of meetings. Oh, the other thing to keep in mind is that, as I stated in the beginning, laws are really fluid things. And once the state owns the definition of something and owns the title of something, they really firmly believe they own it, and they own all of the people engaged in it. So they are really free to change it with one word, one phrase for the rest of time. And so, yeah, we're watching, and we're all volunteers with kids and lives and jobs. And so we try really hard, but things fall through the cracks. Some bills fell through the cracks last time that we didn't want to pass, but they did. And it really only takes one bad outcome, one unhappy doctor, one unhappy parent to come in and say, this is the way the bill was written 2 years ago, but now we can all clearly see the need for more restrictions. So let's just change this little piece here. And then everybody's got to fight super hard again to keep the legislation, you know, as unrestrictive as possible. So that ends the end of anything that I know about anything. I haven't looked at any of these other bills, so I'm gonna just shut up now. And
hang on, one more. Camilla brought up criminalization of midwives.
Oh, okay, so this is a given with any law, be it jaywalking or, you know, stealing cookies from a bakery or whatever. I think it's really important. I'm going to sound radical, but I hope that everybody takes this home and just sits with it quietly by yourself. All laws are enforced at gunpoint, okay? There may be a lot of steps before you get there if you're a really committed person to your autonomy or freedom, or you're just, you know, a really hardened criminal. But all laws are enforced at gunpoint, and all laws require violent coercion for them to work, right? So, of course, there's a note on there about what it will cost the state to potentially, you know, take care of those who break the rules, being, you know, jail time or whatever. But it is a good reminder. I mean, they put that on the top of every bill, but it is a good reminder. Oh yeah, it's going to cost the state money to possibly prosecute and jail people who do not follow our rules. So one question that okay, so liberty-mindedness is fairly new to me and is difficult to swallow because everybody cares about babies and everybody cares about moms, and we do want everybody to be safe and healthy and happy. And we want all, you know, providers to be responsible and to be accountable. And yes, agreed. We all want that. But I want freedom more. I want all of you and me and my daughters and all those people I don't like and all those people that I disagree with and all those people who do abominable things that I hate. I want you all to have the right to operate your life freely without intervention from the government. And I will stand for your right to do that until I have to point a gun. And since I'm not willing to point the gun myself to enforce my views on anyone else, I'm not willing to ask a policeman to do it either. And so I would just invite all of you to sit with that and ask yourself, is that really so radical of a thought? Or would I be willing to point a gun at someone to say, you have to sign this piece of paper, or you have to turn your VBAC mom over to a doctor consult, or you have to do a vaginal check because the law says, or you have to get an ultrasound at such and such weeks, or you can't have your home birth, or you're not allowed to handle twins, or you're not allowed to handle breaches. And I know somebody's going to nail me later. None of these are in our language currently that we're aware of, but these are the realities in other states. And there are midwives who've gone to jail, and there are parents who've gone to jail over these things. So yes, thank you for pointing that out, Camila. And now I really will shut up so that other people can talk about the other bills about which I know nothing.
Faith says in the chat to talk about Hawaii. So Faith, please talk about Hawaii.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Close. Hold on. I'm working on it. Oh, unmute. Oh shoot, I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to make it happen. I'm trying. I don't know how to edit this. Hello? Oh.
Yeah, we can hear you. You don't have to run your
Oh.
video if you don't want. You can just talk.
Oh, you guys didn't hear me talking before. Anyway, so
we heard you.
Hawaii, and I hope Maggie can hop in on here because I see she commented the bill that was just going through Hawaii just this week, and how the Hawaiian midwives were begging for help, pleading for help, because half of the state's midwives were going to be illegal. So one of the things that these bills do, that licensure does, is it eliminates what is the word? The different midwives, okay? Like what happened to the Black midwives in the South. They were legislated out of existence. And the same thing is happening in Hawaii. That has just always been the case. And the people who cared for the community, people who are in the community, like the traditional Hawaiian midwives, are then replaced, and they can no longer serve their people. I don't want to say, well, then they're replaced by white, CPMs, but that is the case, okay? And I like white CPMs. All my friends are here on this call, okay? But it's not right that we're excluding and eliminating other midwives who have been caring for their people for thousands of years. That's wrong. Eliminating the diversity of all the different traditional midwives. So that's something that I wanted to speak upon. That's it.
Okay, if anybody could chime in on the doula bill. I don't know anything about it, and I went past last
Camilla's hand is
session.
up, Maggie. Camilla's hand is up.
Oh, okay, go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Camila Santiago. I'm a CPM here in Southern Nevada, part of Nevada Midwives Association Committee. I just would like to add some notes about criminalization of midwives and how bills can potentially have amendments in the future. So sometimes we have bills that look really good right now. And they cover everything, they serve everybody really well, but then years pass, other groups with different interests come by, sometimes bad outcomes come, and I don't know, like now we're talking here in Nevada about having OBGYNs in our board, nurse midwives in our board. So that concerns me a lot because I know those group of people in the future, they can propose amendments that can restrict the way we practice and the birth freedoms even more. And if you're a professional and you have, your title mentioned in the bill, potentially it can be criminalized if things go south. So, and sometimes it's not even when, of course, they're talking about bad outcomes. And they're like, oh, but we want to make sure that those preventable outcomes don't happen, but sometimes they happen. Sometimes they happen. And that doesn't mean that the midwife was not responsible. But what we're seeing lately, and what concerns us the most, is criminalization of midwives. So if you Google, there's a midwife in Utah, there's a recent case in Nebraska that the state persecuted the midwife. It was not even, it was of course, it was neonatal death that happened during a home birth. And the families were okay with the midwife. They were not pressing charges, but the state did because of licensure. And even those families returned into care with the same midwife, and the state still like pressing charges and running those cases for years and years and years without leaving midwives and families alone. So this is another concern about licensure that I would like to bring up.
Thank you, Camila. We actually know a family who moved to Nevada specifically for that reason. Their baby died during a home birth in another state. And the midwife, who was extremely experienced and credentialed in every way possible, cut an episiotomy to get the baby out fast and performed all the appropriate NRP moves. The baby was alive, but because of the way the licensing laws were, she had to hand the baby over to EMTs when they came. They didn't know how to continue those breaths and that, the appropriate measures for that baby, and that baby died. And the state pressed charges because she had cut an episiotomy, and that was considered medical practice without a license. And this family was, of course, devastated, loved their midwife, did not blame her in any way, but the state so harassed them for so many years that when they became pregnant again, they researched which state did not license midwives, and they moved here. And this is where they've had their babies since. So it does happen, unfortunately.
And we have Alabama that, not talking about criminalization, but talking about amendments, like now there's a midwife trying to open a birth center there, and there's an amendment made in a bill that passed 35 years ago that now is restricting her to open her birth center. Like Alabama, like all the midwives were extinct from that state from the same reasons. When I see a bill with proposed language like midwives must go to a MIC accredited school, that's why Alabama doesn't have midwives now. It's just history of midwifery just repeating itself, and it concerns me deeply. Proposed language saying that traditional midwives cannot be called themselves traditional midwives. I know it's not the case of the bill that is coming up, but who knows? An amendment will come. The last session, they were proposing that traditional midwives couldn't call themselves midwives. They should be called traditional birth attendants. So those things really bring me concern, like make me so concerned. This is so wrong. It's just history of midwifery repeating at itself. If you look at places that midwifery was extinct, you will see that this was initially what happened. They initially, oh, those midwives don't know what they're doing. They're dangerous, they're dirty, they're uneducated. To catch babies, you need to go to school. And then eventually you can only catch babies if you're a doctor.
Great. Thank you, Camila, for bringing all that up. Some very good points that we really need to consider. Does anyone else have anything they want to say on this particular issue of licensure? Because we can also talk about some of the other laws that we're concerned about, or potential laws, the drafts that are on our list. But I want to make sure everybody who wants to say something on this particular issue has a chance. So you can unmute yourself or speak up in the chat. I believe Maggie is monitoring the meeting as hostess, correct? So if somebody raises their hand, you should see it. Because I can't see it.
I actually am terrible at hosting Zoom meetings, and I apologize if you have raised your hand and I have not seen it. I can't see how I would do that, but don't be shy. Just unmute yourself and say, hey, can I say something? I know some of you out there know way more about these doula bills and stuff and have watched them more closely than we have, and I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, just running down the list, there's one about Down syndrome, there's one about fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. There's one about the regulation of donation of birth tissue that's extremely concerning because that can affect our placenta people, and like, can a family do what they want with their own placenta? Like if I have another baby and I grow a complete organ in my body, who gets to decide what I do with that afterwards? Should only be me that decides. The Maternal Mortality Review Committee, there's some proposed changes to that. The Perinatal Quality Control Collaborative, there are changes proposed for that. There's one about telehealth care. There were some changes that happened during the pandemic.
Sorry, Amy, Sin
Yep.
is raising her hand. I don't know how I
Oh.
managed to see it this time.
Woohoo, okay, go ahead, Sin.
Go ahead, Sin.
So my biggest question, because like, also hi, hello. I'm currently a student on Pet Path. So like to get to, and I understand the apprehension of licensure, but being also understanding systems in America, it's going to happen at some point, right? Like, because it's inevitable pretty much on the path that we're on. It's more likely to happen for licensure than for them to just be like, this is the state that's never going to license, right? So, and I hear like, I acknowledge a lot of fear, like a lot of the concerns, especially being a Black student midwife, like that is very much a component to even me being a midwife in the first place, of like the history that happened in midwives in the South. And there's a lot of concern, but like, what is the solution? Like, what is being offered as an alternative, aside from just being like, we oppose these things and we don't want to see them happen? What is being offered as an alternative, as in like, you can't like, how I have come up to learn about how to navigate these systems as someone that is Black and seen as female, like, you can't just be like, I don't want to be a participant in the system and it's fine. They're still going to move on with the system and not consider you. So what is being offered to kind of be like advocating for what the things that you would want to see in this legislation or in general? Aside of like, let's just not do it and let's just say no and let's just like not be a part of it. What's being offered instead to be like, how do we honor the things that we are concerned about?
So I don't want to completely hijack the conversation, and if somebody else wants to chime in, I'm watching for your hand, I think. But that is a very, very good question, and that's what it comes down to, right? Like, who really is in charge of moms and babies and the choices that they make? So your question is so multi-layered. I'm going to try to blast through what I think you're asking. Like, there are so many concerns to be addressed that people are trying to solve with licensure, right? And because you mentioned being a Black midwife, like that comes with a whole other set of concerns. And we have a number of Black midwives who are here on this call, and please do speak up, because that concern then like wraps around your clients as well, right? And we could talk about you know, the disparity of outcomes for Black moms and babies, and it absolutely is a real concern. And then you know, the way that Black midwives can be treated, how they enter the profession. And so there are all of those concerns. And so without naming all of the concerns that licensure hopes to fix, I'm just going to assume, and forgive me, I'm going to assume what some of those might be. And of course, the first one is that licensure will make midwives safer. Okay, so because some people in the state who, by the way, don't actually know anything about home birth, have given you their blessing, and they're supposedly watching over you in some way by means of some board, which is comprised of people that we do not know, that somehow there's going to be some level of accountability there that will make that midwife safer. And we don't see this playing out in real life. We don't see it playing out with any profession, certainly not with OBGYNs, not with plumbers. What it means is that a parent can then possibly go to the state and seek some kind of retribution, right? That system is all broken. And so some of the other concerns that I've heard presented that licensure is supposed to fix is the supposed lack of access for some people to midwifery care because of funds, right? And to that, I would say there's probably 10 midwives here on this call who offer a sliding scale fee or even do free births. Not every midwife can do that. I understand that, and that's not in reach of everybody. But I can tell you that speaking with midwives who do accept Medicaid in other states is not all that great. You do not end up with a third of your fee in many cases.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
like
no, go
that's
ahead.
not what I was asking. I was asking from your guys' opinion of like what you don't want to happen in licensure.
Mhm.
What is it that you guys are going to offer to counteract it, aside from
Okay.
just saying like no?
Right. So I think offering no is the fundamental and most important thing, because it's people, they're speaking up for their own autonomy. We don't need to offer an explanation why we're saying no, right? Because this is our body. This is my home. This is my baby. This is my family. I've entered into this agreement as a cognizant adult with another cognizant adult. So that's
Right.
first and foremost. But
Yeah.
I get you. And I don't mean to speak over you, but I do know we're running into like almost 40 minutes here. So our answer, which has proven to be very effective in Southern Nevada, at least, is education. And I don't mean somebody paying and forming a committee and, like setting up an awareness fund. I mean midwives and moms coming together in circles to educate and strengthen each other. That is the first, foremost, foundational part of many of the practices that I am so honored to know and work in. And many of you can attest the same. Education is the answer. You can't
Camilla's
force
hand is up.
education. What was that, Tiffany? Sorry.
Camilla's hand is up.
Oh,
You can finish, Maggie,
okay.
and I can speak like after. Yeah.
Secondly is peer review. And peer review has been the longstanding method that midwives maintain some form of accountability with each other. One way that we've organized that since 1981 is the Nevada Midwives Association, which has always offered peer review and support to midwives in a non-threatening manner that does not use coercive violence on the part of anybody against any other person. You can belong, you cannot belong. You can come to the peer reviews, you cannot. But the most powerful means that works powerful means by which that works. Sorry, grammar Nazi, so I have to fix things in my head. Is word of mouth, especially in the age of Google. Okay, so you can go find out pretty much anything you need to know about anybody on Google. We all have many groups. Jira, are you?
I was about to wash it, but are you gonna make some fries? Hold on, she's talking to me.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna end on that note.
Sorry.
And Camila, go ahead, and then we don't need to be super polite with each other. Let's pretend we're sitting in one of these educational circles with our kids all around us and snacks, and just go ahead and say what you need to say.
I'll speak after Camila. Thank you.
All right, so I've tried when the last legislation session because I want to be licensed, honestly, being very honest. And with everything that you're confused on and you're not sure about what you want, I usually make 2 columns, the pros and cons. And I feel like lots of midwives here in the state would like to carry some medications or being able to buy some medications and have access to that, access to open lab accounts. And the latest that I've been noticing all around, you know, like maybe a CPMs to be able to open a birth center. But in exchange for my freedom, or this in exchange to potentially put me in jail while I have 3 kids under 6, it's not worth it to me, Sin. Honestly, very, very honestly, it's not worth it to me at all. I don't want to stop. I don't know if everybody knows me, but I'm originally from Brazil. And I don't come from a financial privileged position ever in my life. And I always want to be a midwife. When I moved here, for me, I cannot attend a college, like just walking in a college and showing high school papers and attend a college. So when I saw that in the last bill, yeah, I did not like that one bit. That was a huge barrier. I don't know for everybody here or even for you, Sin, but for me, I would have to pay 2-3 years of really basic prerequisites in order to be able to enter a MIC accredited school. That I don't know if you guys are also aware, you cannot even transfer the credits that you earn in a MIC accredited school. If you decided to be, for example, a nurse midwife, you want to advance your career to, oh, now I want to be a nurse midwife. I want to open a birth center. I want to serve, you know, women, people, you know, in a hospital. You cannot even transfer all those credits and all that money that you spend in a MIC accredited school to become a CNM. So yeah, when I see those bills and I put the pros and cons side by side, I have a huge, huge issue. I know that was removed from the proposed possible future language, you know, that will come up this session, but still there's a little thing, they play with words, you know, and then they're like, oh, equivalent or the equivalent to that. Okay, now is the equivalent to that, but 2 years from now, they pass an amendment like, no, everybody needs to be MIC accredited. And I wouldn't be able to be a midwife today if I had those requirements in place here in Nevada, or if this was all across the board. I feel like if they're trying to push this, they're trying to make it coming, but I don't want to change the way things are right now. So
Yeah, Camilla, I love you so much. Like we've talked about this one-on-one as experiences of like people of color doing it, right? And it's just in my mind, thinking long-term, like it's happening now, it's going to be happening forever because there's always going to be people wanting to do this, right? And like, it is because that's natural. Even how first Stephanie Mitchell in Alabama, that law was 32 years ago. She was like, I'm going to create the first birth center here. And she had to go she was a CPM. She had to go get she got her CNM. She had to go get her CPM to open the birth center. And then after receiving the CPM, they changed the licensure to block her from opening the birth center. That's what you were talking about in Alabama. And like, it doesn't, in my eyes, I'm like, it's happening now. It's going to keep happening later.
Oh, sure.
So like, what is something?
and I'll keep fighting against
We'll
it.
keep fighting it.
We'll keep
We're the
fighting
last
against it.
state
But like,
standing.
why fight when you can advocate for the things that you want to see, right? Like, why?
Because
Like,
there
We
are
already
more
have what we want to
people-
see.
There are people of more power, you know, and with more money than us. We're women, mothers, you know, and birth workers and people of color, and trying to, you know, keep doing this on our own. And they have organizations with lots of money behind it. And I
So
don't
then
want
that's
them
kind
in
of
our
just like-
business. So Sin, please, like it's history of midwifery happening again. If I can fight, I just like don't want to get tired or sick or something. But while I'm still the way I am, I think I'll be fighting against it. You know, and if something this important, and I've seen other midwives from here, like, you know what, I really like, you know, like to be licensed. There are lots of states that can provide that. And some of them literally moved. I'm not telling you to move, but some of people like, no, this is not working for me here. And there's options and you can go to places, you know, and you can, oh no, I want to be MIC accredited, you know, you can move and do that. But here in Nevada, like, I feel like until they open and put down those barriers here in this state, I'm not.
I think I'm just missing the connection between like not, because I hear you guys saying like you're already fighting for the autonomy, you're already like creating the circles and having the conversations with community and community education, but I'm missing the part where it goes from that to then talking and having discussions with people that are trying to have legislation and being like, understand that these are the ways that we see that this works because of XYZ states, it doesn't work like that there. Like, that's the part that I'm missing from this conversation. And that's the part that I was asking
Gonna
about.
mention anything, Maggie?
I forgive me if I'm understanding your question wrong, but it sounds to me like maybe you're asking how we collaborate better with those who do want licensure so that we have more palatable language.
No, it's not palatable language. It's like, how do you collaborate to get the things that you want versus just being like, no, I don't want that. Like if
The
somebody's
same
like,
way that we always have. This is why, and I realize not everybody's experience is the same, okay? And so several years ago, when this conversation really became open with Tiffany and Amanda and Melinda Hoskins and some other midwives from up north, we were really kind of shocked and taken aback, Southern Nevada midwives, at the problems that they were saying they were having because we don't have them here. And it took some sitting and thinking and talking to determine that we operate from a different mindset. So we have actual, true, relational, organic collaboration. Maybe not all the time, maybe not with every doctor, maybe not with every parent, but that's the world we live in, right? So we do have good relationships with doctors and we do have good transfers by and large. And the answer to that is education and relationships, right? Which is a slow and sometimes painful and frustrating process, but it really is the only one that does not require violent coercion of some against others. So that's why we fight. And I don't believe that it's inevitable. I mean, is it probable? Sure. Is it inevitable? No. I'm sorry, Brandy, did you want to say something?
No, sorry.
I mean, we could get into specifics all day long about, you know, some of the needs we're trying to address with legislation is smoother transfers, right? Somehow garnering the respect of, you know, the medical communities, because now that you have this license, they'll suddenly respect you and have to treat your clients better during transfer, you know, have better ease of consults, for instance. There are some midwives who have difficulty with consults. And I honestly do feel for you with all my heart, because it's incredibly frustrating, right? To not be recognized and not be respected. But the answer to that is to build your own sense of self-respect and self-worth as a person and in your profession and for your clients, and to really honor that, and to honor that on the part of the doctors and OBGYNs you're trying to collaborate with, and build relationships and really like create a culture of education that does not require violent coercion.
And we try to have some dialogues with the author of the bills. So, but last session, like not even Danielle Marino was replying to email, refusing to meet with us. And so there was a lot of like miscommunication course, because geographically speaking, they're up north and we are here. They have a completely different reality up there, and we have a completely different reality here. We understand their side, but whatever they're proposing will affect us here too. You know,
Rebecca
so-
and Kristen have hands up.
I'll take a turn. So a couple of things. One is that type of collaboration and respect from the medical community doesn't actually happen even in the states where midwives are licensed. And if you haven't talked to hundreds of midwives from other states, then I suggest that that would be something that you could do, because the example that, shoot, who was it? Maggie gave about the family that moved here because their midwife was being persecuted for the loss in their birth. That was a licensed state. Like, those things don't actually happen. It's a lie. It's a lie being presented by an organization that has a big stake in everybody having to be licensed under their certification program. That isn't actually what happens. And so I think we can say we have these goals, but getting it through by licensure doesn't actually work anyways. And then secondly, oh shoot, I forgot. The answer is to what will we do? Like, what can we do? Well, the reality is we will keep fighting for women to have complete autonomous choices over their body, their babies, and their birth. That's it. That's the only choice there is. We don't say, oh, these people are threatening us, and so it'd be better if we like compromise halfway so that we can get some of the things we want, and then throw other women under the, I don't know, like they can't get what they want. We can't do that. We morally cannot do that. Like, we have to fight for all women to be able to maintain complete autonomy over their bodies. And that doesn't happen when there's people telling midwives what they can and can't do. And we've seen that. We have clients that come repeatedly to Nevada to have their babies. That happens all the time. And like somebody else mentioned, there's plenty of choices. There's still a choice to be a CNM here. There's plenty of choices of other states to go to and be licensed in. But we're really happy here being a safe haven for people who can come and make their 100% choices for their body, and they don't have to answer to anybody, no threat of jail or anything like that for anybody. And so the answer is no, we will not believe the lie that it's better for us to cooperate with a legislative plan because do it with our own with the way we want it done or something like that. That's a big lie that goes around. It doesn't actually happen. It hasn't happened in the other states. We're so fortunate that we're so far behind the other states, over 25 years, 30 years. And so we can see what's actually happened. And so we know that's not what's going to happen. So the only thing we can do is say, no, Nevada is going to continue to be a free state for women. So there is some place they can go where they can have a midwife attended home birth by their own choices. That's it. That's all we have. We can't do anything else morally. Sorry, I'm done.
You're good, Rebecca. I was going to say a lot of the same things. So I've lived in states that were licensed, that have been licensed for a long time. And honestly, that collaboration between the transfers still doesn't happen unless that midwife has had the time to make those relationships with those doctors. So when you're like, oh, this was my midwife, they're like, oh, okay, we know her work, we know her, we know like everything. Like, it's honestly, regardless of the licensing, it's up to the midwife to make those connections with those doctors so that they know, okay, this person was cared for. The licenses don't protect anybody in any profession, period. Like, people who are licensed, all you have to do is pay a fee and you get a paper and now you're licensed. And there's supposedly oversight and stuff, but how many times do people just get hit with fines and fees and they're like, oh, you did something bad, here, pay us more money, here, pay us more money, here, pay us more money, and they're still licensed, they're still out there doing these things. And so another example that we actually have here in Nevada about, people are like, oh, just compromise. Well, let's take the homeschooling bill, for example, and the big fight that came up with that and how we're now free to homeschool how we want, because so many people fought for freedom for that. We got out from under the grip of the government for homeschooling, and we're free to homeschool as we see fit because there was such a big fight and a big pushback to keep us free, to take that control back from the state. And that was a huge fight. I was a part of that as a kid. and, you know, just making sure that those freedoms were available for people. In Nevada, you know, we're the Wild West state. Why can't we just stay the Wild West state and keep the freedoms that we already have? If people want to pick a doctor, they can pick a doctor. If people want to pick a CPM, they can pick a CPM. If people want to pick a CNM, they can have a CNM. And, you know, the CNMs can have their birth houses now. And so it's, you know, all these options are already available. And the only thing that licensure does is it clamps down and restricts freedoms that we already have. And I understand with Northern Nevada, they have a different dynamic because they have all the California people coming in, and all the California people are, there's not a better word for it, brainwashed into thinking that licensure is, you know, the way to go. And so when they're like, oh my goodness, you're not licensed here, what the heck is that? It's because that's all they know coming from these other states that have the licensure, and they're the ones that are pushing this bill, and they, you know, that's what it is. And so we need to be like, no, this is Nevada, this is how it is here, and we need to educate them on what we already have and how we don't need these paper certificates.
Thank you. Hi, this is Faith Bosket. I'm a Black traditional midwife here in Nevada, and I want to speak from a very intimate Black point of view. So I went to Alabama to the Black Midwives Conference about this time last year. And so just meeting all the illegal Black midwives who have been eradicated from their states is enough for me not to stop. The Black VBAC who I'm caring for right now, who was crying, you know, on my shoulder last week about how she was so mistreated and how she's so thankful that she's able to have a VBAC because she has the opportunity to have that in the state, is enough for me to keep fighting. The fact that the diversity of midwives is being erased from really around the world with this licensure mill, and how it's just collecting, you know, erasing certain midwives and collecting others and replacing them, is enough for me to keep fighting. Just as a black woman, a Black person, the civil rights movement for my people, for our people, just because something is pending, just because a bad bill, a law gets passed, doesn't mean we stop fighting. It's right. If it's right, it's right to fight. And so even if I was going to gain something from this bill, or other people that I love are going to gain something, still the mothers are going to be thrown under the bus. Still there's midwives who are going to be thrown under the bus. And for that reason, that's why I morally can't stop fighting. So that's just a very important thing to me, because it's just not right. And it doesn't matter if people are doing it everywhere. People are doing all kinds of things, but I just won't have any part of it. But I love and support all the different midwives. And that's my point of view.
Maggie, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was just explaining that I'm not techie. And I saw that both Jira and who else? Somebody else
Brittany.
had their hand up.
Brittany did.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't raising my hand. I was doing the hand clapping emoji for Faith. Sorry.
Okay, so those of you who really want to continue this discussion, there are two really great places online to do that, and that would be Nevada Friends of Midwives and on Facebook. That is, we also have a website. The discussion's mostly on Facebook. And the Mothers Pushback discussion group. So those are two great places to keep learning about this bill. And so I'd really love to hear about some of these others. If you have questions about them, if you know anything about them and can kind of help us figure out what they're all about, that would be fantastic.
Someone
Okay,
is
so
saying here in
Taylor
the chat,
says, sorry, Camila. Who was that?
I was going to read the question here
Oh.
in the chat. Go ahead, Maggie.
Okay, so Taylor Turner says, to my knowledge, the doula bill is to raise the reimbursement for doulas who are Medicaid providers. Thank you for that. So I'm assuming this is in response to the bill that was passed last session that would allow some doulas to become licensed and therefore bill Medicaid. And I've heard through the grapevine, don't quote me on this, that you get paid a whopping $150 from Medicaid to attend a birth as a doula. So that is something to consider.
I think it was $350 and it was raised to $450 now.
Okay, I wouldn't attend a birth for $450 unless I really loved you.
My question is how you guys are holding on to just like keep up with the bills and
Yeah, if
unless
you
you
are
have
a
a really high
doula and you
volume.
have done this, we would love to hear how that's working out for you. You know, how easy is it to get reimbursement? Have you taken many, many more clients that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to? Like, how's that working out?
So Taylor, I don't know. Again, I'm not super involved with the doula bill, but I know in some other states, Medicaid reimburses about $1,000 to midwives for the whole prenatal care, birth, and postpartum. Unless you have a really, really busy practice, like a team practice or a birth center.
That's what I was say.
yeah.
I highly doubt Medicaid will pay $1,500 to a doula when they won't even pay $1,500 to a midwife.
Yeah, so there is the doula co-op. I'm not sure if some of you have heard of the doula co-op, but they are trying to basically just copy the language from Oregon, and Oregon pays their Medicaid doulas $1,500.
Thank you for that. From
Yeah.
what I've heard from other CNMs, what they're reimbursed from Medicaid is nowhere near that. I would be really surprised if that happened here. I personally would not take that route because I learned this phrase from a dear friend of mine. If you are not paying for the service, then you are not the customer, you are the product. And it's a really harsh truth to realize, but when there is a third party paying for your birth, they get to call some shots. And when you're being reimbursed by whoever that is, you're also giving up some of the autonomy of your practice. And I haven't even looked at what the licensure requirements would be to become one of these doulas. But I can imagine, because I have a very vivid imagination, that then you become, in many cases, unfortunately, a professional gaslighter for the hospitals rather than an advocate for your client. And if you are up against a wall, really do need to advocate for your client, then it's pretty likely that you're put on a blacklist. That's just my vivid imagination working there.
So the doula co-op is just called the doula co-op. And there is a northern chapter and a southern chapter. The girls who started it are good friends of mine. I'm not really involved because I don't really want to be paid by, I'm a doula. I don't want to work with insurance, but I can send you the info of the girl who is doing all the work with the bills.
That would be fantastic. If you think she'd be okay with it, you could put it in the chat, or okay, yeah, doula co-op. Okay, yeah. Thank you for that, because we wanted to watch it last term and we just didn't have the energy.
So I am on the board for the doulas, and I came in as an unlicensed doula fighting for unlicensed. Oh, I'm Brandy, sorry. I know my video's off. I'm on the board and I came in asking for the unlicensed doulas who wish to start taking Medicaid, if there was some way they could be grandfathered in. And I was shot down by by literally every other doula. The people making these laws and Medicaid themselves, they know nothing about anything. That's why they brought this group of doulas together, and it's not going well. You can only be accredited through 5 organizations, and you have to have other classes that they just keep stacking on. Every time we meet, they stack more classes on. With it was originally $350. We did raise it to $450, and they are fighting to get it to $1,500 to match Oregon. And it's sad to see from my point of I tried to make the fight of doulas have been unlicensed. You have to have one of the the certificates from one of the 5 certifying things that they chose, in addition to also being state certified through Nevada. The process is pretty annoying and not easy to do, because then you have to get your provider number and then deal with paperwork from Medicaid. But I did try for us.
Okay. So if you're a doula,
Maggie, can I say something real fast?
yeah, sure.
Which you might be on the same mind track that I was just going to say. So if you are a midwife and there's this doula bill happening, and doulas are trying to get what another state, which Oregon is kind of an exception, I felt like, because if you look around at other states, Medicaid does not pay like that. How is that going to affect midwives? How is that doula bill going to affect midwives if that comes into play? So that's just a thought there. It just kind of popped in my head of if they're trying to get this passed, then what's the next step? You know what I mean? Like, so that's something I would, if I was a doula, I would be very, very, very careful with that.
Yeah, I would strongly advise all doulas to watch this like a hawk, not only during legislative sessions, which are every 2 years, but also in between. Find out who all the little boards and committees are that meet in the interim, and ask to get on their email lists so that you can listen into their meetings, see what their agendas are. Lots and lots of very significant changes happen during those small interim committee meetings when nobody's paying attention to the legislature, like on, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, when people are busy, that kind of thing. Because once you've licensed half of a group of a profession, right, then over time, it really is inevitable that somebody's going to say, we need to license all of you. There's a bad outcome, or somebody realizes they're losing money. They start looking at all, these other people who are practicing who don't have to pay money to the state because they don't have the benefits of licensure. And they look at that cash cow, and the schools who accredit these people and the certifying bodies who certify these doulas and midwives, look at all the money they're missing out on. And pretty soon somebody goes in there and changes the law with just one little phrase or a few words, and then you all have to be licensed or you can't practice. So I would be watching those very, very carefully. Figure out how to use the legislative website. Gather a few friends around you who will commit to do the same, and just watch those bills and watch those committees.
I'm gonna stop in and say just for a second, just watching this, what the doulas are doing looks very much like what we expect the midwifery bill to look like. Voluntary licensure, one of the reasons is to get Medicaid reimbursement. And I just heard a description from Brandy saying how difficult it is and how they keep adding requirements and how things keep changing. So if that's what they're doing with the doulas who already
That's exactly what I was just going to say.
A licensure, yeah, like this is exactly what will happen with the midwives, is that they'll keep tacking on the requirements, they'll keep changing the requirements. And like, I'm not a midwife, I don't know from your point of view, I'm just a mother, but I'm looking at this on the outside going, why would I want to submit my midwife to that? Why would I want my midwife to keep having to jump through more and more and more hoops just so she can sit in my living room while I have a baby peacefully? Like, it doesn't make sense to me from that perspective. Like, I am good as a mother. I can talk to many midwives. I can find out what her education and background is. I can interview as many people as I want. I can decide for myself who I want in my house while I am giving birth. And I have had, I've had 3 home births. And at the first one, the midwife didn't make it in time. My friend was there acting as my doula. She was not being paid anything. But now I'm looking back and going, if these laws had been in play at the time, how might that have been different? And it scares me as a mother, like what might be coming down the road. So that's my perspective on this. That's it. I'll shut up now.
Who wants to say something about the Down syndrome bill? Kristen, you probably know because you've been talking about it.
Sorry. Hi, I didn't realize my camera was still on. A friend's flight got canceled and she was supposed to be here tonight, so I've been trying to deal with that. The Down syndrome bill, basically it's mandatory reporting of Down syndrome. And I've been looking at so many bills. I don't remember if it's mandatory testing during pregnancy or not, but I know it's mandatory reporting for sure. And nothing good ever comes with mandatory reporting.
So if I could leave everybody with some more phrases from our dearly beloved mentor, who owns the baby? Who owns that information, right? If we think of rights in terms of property rights, all rights are property rights because they pertain to something that you own. You own yourself, you own your babies, whether or not they're born or unborn, until they are old enough to own themselves. And the state truly does not believe this. They believe that they kind of rent them to us or something. And so to say that if there is a piece of information about our child that by law we have to turn over to the governing authorities is a really nasty violation of parental rights. And I hope that everybody will fight that.
So the same thing kind of applies to the bill that provides regulation of the donation of birth tissue. It has some pretty, I know as of now, it states more like for facility that process, but they want to regulate, you know, they want to tell like what mothers should do with that. And that concerns me as
I'm sorry, facilities that process, does that like also include people who are encapsulating?
I'm pretty sure. The proposed language is pretty short. So if you guys have time and patience, I can read real quick. And I got really concerned with that one because what if the mother that just created that placenta and birthed it at home just want her neighbor to encapsulate her placenta? You know, and they're regulating.
They have it in there as a class 2 felony.
Yes, and a possible fine of $50,000.
If you break what rule exactly? If like you don't have a licensed facility?
If the birth tissue is not processed on the licensed facility.
So that would be what, UNLV? Like who is?
I don't know.
Because hospitals throw them away.
Throw it away. I don't believe it because there are facilities here in this town right now that use placenta stem cells to inject in joints. And it's a very expensive treatment. And tell me how they get those placentas if it's not from hospitals, that they throw it away. I don't believe that they throw it away. It's not coming from the home birth moms.
Oh, if only Dr. Conti were here to chime in. That's gross, people. I hope that you were keeping an eye on that and fighting it if you ever hope to encapsulate a placenta for somebody. Okay. So did we put into the chat how people can reach out and find us?
I will drop some links right now.
Okay. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I see an unidentified iPhone, several names I don't recognize because Vegas is big, right? And I do see Tiffany in Reno, Nevada, and I'm gonna assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this is Tiffany who has helped to write the bill. And because we can't seem to get a stakeholder meeting, I would just like to throw it out there that this is your information, this is your chance to correct misinformation, or otherwise, I don't know, make your pitch for licensure. And I understand if you don't want to, but this is your chance.
She's saying in the chat that tonight isn't for pitches.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I wrote my pitch and I was happy to give it. So
Can
if
I
anybody
just
hasn't,
read one line? Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
I'm pretty big on the placenta thing, not only
Okay.
because I'm an encapsulator too, but I, you know. So I just want to read one little paragraph about that. So section 2 of Bill AB 154. So when a patient who's pregnant may make a living donation of birth tissue in the manner prescribed by the regulations pursuant to subsection 3. And then subsection 3, there's a whole like ways that they dictate what is a manner prescribed by the regulations. So just that, it's not even like the fact that they can fine me $50,000 if I'm not licensed, and they don't even mention like how to get licensed to do that. Just that they're trying to regulate how mothers can make living donations. Living donation is like they're alive and they choose to donate their birth tissue to whatever reason. So I have a big issue with that. It's not even the encapsulation. So, and end of my placenta talk here for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so I put links in the chat to both Mothers Pushback and Nevada Friends of Midwives on Facebook. If you are not on Facebook, you can reach out to one of us directly. I'll put my phone number in the chat in my email for Mothers Pushback. Maggie, do you want to leave your phone number for Nevada Friends of Midwives? So if somebody, yeah. We are all happy to talk to anybody who has questions about what's going on and or has concerns. Like this is what we want to do. So please reach out and talk to us. Especially if we did not talk about something you're interested in, or you have a viewpoint that did not get expressed in this meeting. We want to hear it. So please do contact us.
Tiffany corrected me on her name and then I lost it.
It's Hoffman,
Because-
not Hoskins.
Thank you. I knew I wasn't right.
Melinda Hoskins.
Melinda Hoskins, Tiffany Hoffman, and I am trying to make a mental note, so I will never.
And then we have a Sherry Hopkins.
Yes, there is a
Just to
Sherry.
keep, yeah. So it gets interesting trying to keep everybody straight.
This is as bad as a few years ago when we had the midwife Annie Morris. And I, Amy Norris, was teaching birth classes in lactation consulting. And Facebook actually blocked, they put her in Facebook jail because they thought she was trying to impersonate me because we were friending the same people.
Yeah, I remember.
Talking to, yes. So just like Annie Morris and Amy Norris are not the same people. Tiffany, see how was he gonna get? Tiffany Hopkins, Melinda Hoskins, and Sherry None of those are the same people. They all have their own distinct names, and we will make an effort to refer to you properly from now on. Thank you
Yes,
for the
my
correction.
apologies. My apologies. Okay, so Camila is asking about another stakeholder meeting. So a stakeholder is loosely defined as anybody who could be affected by this bill. So by that logic, we could extend it to every single person, right? And so in the past, these stakeholder meetings that have been held, there's been a lot of awkwardness and discomfort and anger at the people who are invited because historically, having people like OBGYNs or, major organizations, these kind of people make midwives a little wary when we start to talk about legislation. And we don't often see this in other industries that become licensed. Often their board will be comprised of people of their industry, right? And so that is a great concern. I don't have the list in front of me. Maybe someone wants to grab it off one of the Facebook groups I put it on, or off of NACPM, or maybe Tiffany, you'd like to post it, the list of people who are considered stakeholders. And one of the frustrations is that there have been, as far as I know, 3 stakeholder meetings. One of them held by Pink Peas, one of them held by Jelena Simpson with Make It Work Nevada, which is a special interest group that was behind a lot of these bills last time. And one held by Tiffany and Amanda. Now, the problem with a lot of these is that because there's a Zoom option, you end up with a huge room full of people, and then you have other people zooming in, and it's just incredibly difficult to hear everybody who's talking. And we've been asking and asking and asking. We cannot find a list of the people who are in attendance. And the reason this is important is because a lot of the language that's being used is being put forth on a pretense that there are stakeholders calling for it, which is fine. Great. I mean, we're all stakeholders and we're given our opinions, right? But I can't get in contact with any of these people to say, why do you feel that we need to have this disclosure form? Well, how do you think that would work? I would like to speak with all of these stakeholders, and I'm sure all these parents and people who are here would like to hear from them as well. What really is awkward is when you don't hear from these people until we're all standing before legislators and they're reading off their statement, which is full, if you want to talk about misinformation, it's just full of lies. And just, I'm not going to go there. I responded to most of those letters last time, but if we're all going to say that we're stakeholders, then I would like to see another stakeholder meeting. And I understand that there isn't language to the bill yet, but that's part of the problem and the mystery at this point, is that we're making a lot of assumptions and then being accused of spreading misinformation when I'm very clear, I'm just going off the last bill, because that's what we have to work with. And it's in the hands of the Council Bureau at this point, who are people who know zero about home birth and can't even pronounce the word midwifery. So we have no idea how it's going to turn out. And so these are valid concerns. Oh, one other thing on my list, which I misplaced, so forgive me, is that so the NACPM, the National Association for Certified Professional Midwives, did I get that right? There's always so many acronyms to keep track of. There's a Nevada chapter, and precious few CPMs in Nevada who belong to that chapter. And I know nothing about it. I do not know the reasons why a CPM would belong or not belong to this organization, but we assume, I think with valid evidence, that they are putting forth a lot of money and backing this. And so I'm just going to mute myself. And CPMs, if you want to talk about that, I know nothing about it, but feel free to chime in.
Real quick, I want to chime in about the stakeholder meetings that have supposedly happened. I mean, they've happened. I was there. But on Tiffany's meeting specifically, we were told that if we pre-registered, that the meeting would then be emailed out to us. So they did a lot of data farming and getting our information to have, you know, supposedly going to send this meeting out to us, and nothing has ever been done. There's been no follow-up emails. There's been nothing, no communication period. And it's really frustrating as a stakeholder to not have this information available.
And I just think that it speaks volume when you have like so many CPMs and midwives and only 2 CPMs that belong to an organization that want to push this down everybody's throat. So I like this organization, like I even tried to join at some point, got nothing in response. It was like completely dead. And then it just resurrected just for the sake of pushing a bill. So that itself, it speaks volume to me.
Tiffany, I never said anything about funding. I said sending out the Zoom call that we were all on, that we were all stakeholders a few months ago, where you said pre-register and we will email everyone who pre-registered the recording, and nothing has come out.
No, I said something about funding. I'm just really curious because there was talk about hiring a lobbyist, which is not cheap. And, you know, it takes considerable effort to gather stakeholders. And so I'm just assuming there's money. Again, me assuming.
I mean, I suppose it's possible they're paying for it out of pocket if they want it that badly.
I don't know if all birth professionals are aware of an organization called the Big Push. I don't know, I'm not assuming anything. I'm not saying that, you know, those 2 midwives are in a Nevada NACPM has any contact with them, because I don't know. But this is the goal of that organization, to push legislation in all states. So feel free to do some research on that, you know, and again, I'm repeating because we're being recorded and I want to make sure that I'm not spreading misinformation. I don't know if Nevada chapter of NACPM has connections with the Big Push, but this is the intention of that organization.
I just want to make sure we're giving plenty of time for people who have not been able to ask about other bills, or who have information about them that they want to share, or anything else. We're pushing on to an hour and a half now. So you all have our contact information, but if there's anything else anyone wants to talk about or questions you want to ask, now's the chance. I'm going to assume we're all tired and want to put our kids down now, so.
I'm going to add about stakeholder meetings. If I would love to come to a stakeholder meeting as a mother, I consider myself a stakeholder, and I talk to a lot of other mothers who consider themselves stakeholders, because we are talking about our own bodies and our own babies and what happens in our own homes. So I love this idea of having a stakeholder meeting that Maggie's brought up, and bringing in the interested people, the people this really affects. So if that happens, I plan to be there, and I will let people know when it happens so people can be there, and make it transparent and recorded and available so that there's no question about what was said and who said it, and what we, the stakeholders, really want.
Mm-hmm. And when I was calling the midwives back in October to do our update of our polls, there were some midwives who were under the impression that we kept our stakeholder meeting a secret, that we didn't invite everybody. We very specifically wrote in our invitation, this is open to any midwife, pass it along, please. Like if you have friends or colleagues, because I mean, you know, the way that we gather information is literally just by picking up the phone and calling every single midwife in Nevada that we can find, and then asking them who they are comfortable with us sharing their information with, and just being really careful about that. So I can't just send a blanket invitation to everybody unless it's like it was tonight on Facebook, and then hope that it reaches the right people. But that was absolutely an open and transparent meeting that was available to anybody.
It's like, I hope we did a good job spreading the word about this meeting tonight. We had a good turnout, but I'm sure there's going to be people that said, I never heard about that meeting. Like, I even went and shared it. I'm still in the lactation consultants group, even though I'm not an LC anymore. I went and shared it there to try and get more people to come to this thing. So like, this meeting was open to everyone.
Camila, do you want to talk more about how midwives can look at the Nevada Midwives Association?
Sure. So as I express, what I feel about Nevada chapter of NACPM, I looked into other midwives association, and there's NMA. If you're a midwife, if you're a light birth professional, you can be part of this organization that has been here in the state of Nevada since the 80s, since before I was even born. So, and they're the ones that taught us how to fight and for freedoms of birth families here in the state. So, and they never got tired of fighting. So that's who my inspiration comes from. And this is the organization that I choose to be part of. So I invite any birth professionals, any midwives to be there. Even if you're not a midwife, you can be an allied birth professional that support this cause.
Yay. Okay. Well, I'm tired. I don't know who else is tired. We can wrap it up. And I don't know how to get this recording out to those who want it. Amy, be my brain.
I have no idea how to do anything with recordings. Sorry. Maybe
Okay.
Rachel can help with that or something.
Okay. We will have a recording, and I'll most likely use Facebook in some form to get the word out to those who were present or who just want to watch it.
And I'm copying the chat right now. I've been trying to take notes as we go along. So I have copied the chat. So if anybody needs to refer back to it, they can contact me.
Thank you, Amy. Amy's our savior because she keeps us organized. Oh, okay. So Tiffany says, no, that we couldn't figure out how Zoom collects a list of attendees. You may want to have someone write down. Oh dear. Okay, well, I did ask people to drop their names in the chat. I was kind of assuming.
I did it. I took a roll.
Oh, bless you. Because I was assuming it would just give me a list.
No, that's why we started doing that. When any meeting that we have on this issue, we always start now by saying, put your name in the chat and what your role is. And then I have been taking those names and making a list. And if there's somebody who didn't, I can, whatever the information they have on their profile picture, like all our little Brady Bunch pictures. So like there's some people on the list, like their name is Cat or iPhone or whatever it is, but at least there's something. So if somebody says, well, I was there, why, like, okay, we can come back and look at it.
Okay.
So it's not just that, like Tiffany's saying that they couldn't do that because Zoom didn't send them a list. Okay, that's fine. Zoom doesn't send you a list, but they had people pre-register. So they have all of our information for the people who did pre-register. And then like, that's what pisses me off is that they did all this data farming. They have all of our information, yet they're not communicating.
Well, just know that if you do reach out to me at Nevada Friends of Midwives, I go through a pretty tedious and annoying little conversation with you on every phone call asking who you are comfortable with me sharing your information with, and it's all coded by number and really do, even but within ourselves, and Camila can attest to this, and Amy, hey, how do I get a list? I'm like, I'm sorry, but I made a promise. Like, I know a lot of the people on this list you know and love, and they know and love you, but I can't just hand you the list. So if you want to call and talk, and you want for your communication to be private, and you're absolutely assured that it will be private, because I know it's a heated topic and sometimes we're not comfortable speaking up in this kind of setting.
She's claiming multiple emails have been sent out, but I have, for the record, not received a single one since I signed up for that stakeholder meeting initially. So either my name got removed purposefully or something happened that I keep getting skipped. Just putting that on the recorded line.
I have also emailed and made requests on social media for the recorded stakeholder meeting, and I did not receive a response until today.
It's really not hard if you have the recording and you're having trouble sharing it as the recording to upload it to YouTube with a link and just have it unlisted so people can't search it, but anyone with the link can view it.
Unless you're like me and you conduct an hour-long, really amazing interview and everybody's hair was good and no kids interrupted, and then you realize you didn't hit record. This does happen too.
Oh no.
Speaking of
I
interviews,
could have helped spread, you know, the record link to everybody, because the same way I could spread the word for this meeting today. So
speaking of
for the next
recordings,
So Tiffany, if you need help, just ask. Like, honestly, if you need help getting that out, everyone's been asking for it, just ask.
there's a good idea. If you have not seen the interview with Lindy Casey, I posted it to Nevada Friends of Midwives. It's long, but it's great. And we hope to have more of those coming. Hope to speak with some midwives in other states who have been prosecuted or otherwise had problems working under licensure, and to speak with a few loss families. Loss is a forefront topic during this session because of course, there have been families who have experienced loss during their home births, and I am a lost mom. So when I say I grieve with you, I mean it. I grieve with you, and it's a tragedy. And I'm still going to fight for the right for every mother to choose her own midwife without government interference. And that includes a mom being able to make her own research choices about her midwife. Okay, I think we're just beating a dead horse now. We should probably just all go to bed.
I second that motion. My children need me.
Same.
Okay, good night. Thank you. Heartfelt thanks for everybody who hung on till the very end. And of course, to those who had to go, we're gonna figure out the recording and how to get that out for those who want it. Feel free to reach out to anybody who dropped their information here. And feel free to reach out to Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno and let her know how you feel about this bill one way or the other. She'll know what you're talking about. You don't have to give her a bill number. And please do reach out to other representatives if there's other bills that you're concerned about. Even if all you say is, I don't know much about this, but I'm concerned about it. Will you please keep an eye on it and you know, just keep in mind, you know, autonomy and choices. Okay, signing off.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you for everything, and thank you for all that attended. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everybody, for showing up.